All right, so it looks like we're on YouTube right now, and I'll just be checking over there for comments. So, welcome to my first ever live. I am here for you triathletes, for you endurance athletes, beginners to advanced. If you have any questions at all, um, that's what I'm here for. I just want to give back. This whole live event got started in the Triathlon for Beginners Facebook group, and I was just really um, encouraged and inspired by all the new triathletes. I've been in the sport for 24 years, and I love it. And I'm just here to give back to you all. So we'll see if anybody shows up today. I'm going to keep checking over on YouTube to see if there are any comments there. And um, yeah, I'm just here to answer your questions live in person, well, so to speak, um, but in real time. And I don't have anything special prepared. I didn't try to put together a presentation. Um, but since nobody has joined in yet, um, and maybe there's one other viewer out there, so thanks for joining and checking this live out. Um, I can't tell if you are on StreamYard or YouTube. But either way, um, I can tell you a little bit more about myself um, and my experiences in the sport. Maybe I'll share a few stories. And if nobody ever shows up, then I may end up just deleting this. So we'll see what happens. Um, so my name is Kevin Strauss. All of my social handles are at Kevin R. Strauss. That's actually my personal website as well, kevinrstrauss.com. I have been in the sport of triathlon since 2001. Um, hey, Jack Morgan, thanks for joining on YouTube. Wow, you're my first official attendee. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat over there on YouTube. I've got a second screen. And actually, they're showing up here on StreamYard as well. I'm assuming you can hear me and see me. So thank you for that. Um, and tell me about yourself, Jack. Are you a triathlete? Are you interested in triathlon or endurance sports? Um, what brings you here tonight? And if you don't want to respond, that's okay too. I'll just continue sharing a little bit about my journey in triathlon. I got started in triathlon just as kind of a favor to a friend. Back in the day, back in the early 2000s, I was doing a lot of rock climbing, and I'd gotten started in the backpacking world, expedition backpacking, multi-week stuff. And at the time, around 2000, there was something called the Eco Challenge, and it was an endurance event that covered like I can't remember how many miles, but the winning team of four people would do this eco challenge for the winning team. It would take them like 6 days. They would only sleep like 2 to 4 hours a day, and it was from start to finish. And there was all kinds of orienteering and water travel, kayaking, mountain biking, trail running, hiking. Rappelling, mountaineering, even, climbing up over big mountains. And this was really exciting to us as rock climbers. And I had some friends, and we thought about giving it a go. We wanted to get into this adventure sport. And um, and then around that same time, a friend of mine asked me if I would be interested in doing a triathlon with her. And just a sprint distance triathlon. It was actually the Dewey Sprint in Maryland. And I'll tell you what, like I told her yes, but I didn't even know how to swim at the time. I could tread water. I could do sort of a breaststroke. In order to graduate from college, that was NC State that I went to, you had to pass a swimming test. And if you couldn't pass the test, or if you um, or if you failed to take the test, then you had to take beginning swimming as one of your physical education requirements to graduate. So I could tread water, I could get from one end of the pool to the other in any fashion, but I could never do any sort of formal freestyle or crawl stroke. And even as a kid, my mom had put me into swim lessons, and that was like completely traumatizing for me. I always had fears of water. My brother used to dunk me and hold me underwater all the time. So I had a lot of issues around water. And so this friend had asked me if I would do a triathlon with her. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Not thinking that 7 months later, she actually called me on it. She's like, hey, it's time to register for the triathlon. And I'm like, what? Like, this is like, oh my God. But I'd made a promise, and so I really try to keep my promises. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And that was in 2001, and the race was in September of 2001. And I had been planning a big 3 week expedition backpacking trip up to the northern slopes of Alaska. So up in the Brooks Range, up in Anwar, which is the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, up in the far, far northeast corner of Alaska. So I was going to be there for the whole month of August. So I needed to learn to swim. I wasn't going to do breaststroke, or I didn't want to do breaststroke for this triathlon. So I committed to going to the pool 5 days a week for 8 straight weeks. So for all of June and all of July of 2001, I went to the pool and I swam for 30 minutes. That was it, in and out. Um, and I committed to learning how to swim. And really, what it started with was just breaststroke for 30 minutes. And again, it's not like, the real breaststroke. I mean, it was just like a hack. And and then I asked a friend of mine who grew up swimming, and he was on swim team. He's a really good swimmer. I asked him to, help me out, and he's like, sure. So we went to the pool, and I'm like 31 years old at the time. And we went to the pool together, and we literally just sat on the bottom of the pool blowing bubbles because I could never really equalize the pressure between like my ears and my throat and breathing properly. It was always like a big challenge for me. So anyway, so that's sort of how I started to get the pressure correct. And then, like I said, I started with 30 minutes of breaststroke, and then I started to try to do some sort of a freestyle, some sort of a crawl technique. And I mean, it was terrible. It was like I would I'd stroke, and to breathe, I was like, a turtle with his head out of the water. And then I'd go back in and stroke and breathe and try to turn my head to the side. But it was terrible, but I did it. So I would do like a length of that freestyle, and then 3 lengths of breaststroke. And I just kept doing that, and I committed to going to the pool, um, 5 days a week for the whole 8 weeks. And eventually I could swim 30 minutes of that terrible, terrible freestyle technique. But I did get comfortable sort of in the water. And then I went on this backpacking trip where I was like away for like a month because of travel time to Alaska and everything. And I'm located in Maryland. So I didn't train for the bike. I didn't train for the run. I only had a mountain bike with like front suspension at the time. And I'd recruited some of my rock climbing friends because we thought we would sort of do it together. Um, do it together as like a team sort of event. And they were into it because this was going to be our preparation for getting into adventure racing. So we get down to the race, to the Dewey Sprint on the eastern shore of Maryland. And, the day before the race, my friend who got me to sign up bails on me. She's like, I'm sick. I can't do it. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, I'm only doing this because of you. And I recruited other people to do it. And now, you're not even doing it. Okay, so we went ahead and did it, and then they turned it because it was an ocean swim and the water was so rough that they canceled the swim and they turned it into a duathlon. So it was a run, bike, run. And again, I really hadn't trained for the bike or the run, but um, we went ahead and did it, and we sort of stayed together when we could as a group, as it was three of us. And I got through it, and it was terrible. It was really, really hard, and the bike ride was really hard on a mountain bike with front suspension and knobby tires. But I got through it, and the run, which is my weakest discipline, I got through it. But I was so bummed out not being able to actually do a full triathlon, do the swim, bike, and run, that then I heard about the Columbia Triathlon, and I live in Columbia, Maryland, and that was taking place in May of 2002. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing that. And long story short, because I really want to get to any other questions, please ask your questions. I ended up doing the Olympic distance Columbia Triathlon, which is, from what I hear, one of the harder Olympic distances in the country, but whatever. And it went great. I hit my goal of breaking 3 hours, barely. And then I was kind of hooked, because once I finished that, I'm like, oh, I know I can do it better. There's a lot more to it. There's more stories. But again, I'm here for you. I really want to answer your questions. I've been in this sport for 24 years now. I've learned so much about nutrition, about injury prevention. I'm injury free. Over this entire 24-year period, I've done dozens and dozens and dozens of triathlons, everything from sprint to Ironman. And then I've done other kinds of endurance activities as well. So I'd love to hear your questions. I really just want to help out. You can get live on screen if you go to the StreamYard link, which should be pinned to the comments, or feel free to type anything into the chat. I know we've got a couple people on listening in. So please tell me your story, share your story. Let's meet. A couple more people have joined in. Thanks for coming here today to this live event. Really just here to answer any of your questions about triathlon or endurance sports in general. I've been in the sport for 24 years. I've been backpacking for even longer, which is also an endurance sport. And I'm here just to answer questions. I'm not pushing anything. I'm not promoting anything. I really just wanted to do this because I love the Facebook community, the Triathlon for Beginners group on Facebook. It's so wonderful. It's so supportive. I've met a lot. Well, I've sort of communicated with a lot of people through that Facebook group. And I love to help out however I can. So this is what they call dead air, right? When nobody's talking. Or when I'm not talking. Welcome, whoever's joined recently. Again, my name is Kevin. I'm here just to answer any questions about triathlon or endurance sport from beginner to advanced. Put them in the chat or join me over on StreamYard. You can be on camera and we can just get to know each other. I'm here to just give back to the triathlon community and the endurance sport community however I can, answering questions just to help out. So if you have any questions about the sport, about gear, about nutrition, about training, about injury prevention, just even about the sport of triathlon in general, I'm happy to answer whatever I can answer. I've been in the sport for a long time, several decades. Let's see. So what else can I share about triathlon? What comes up a lot in endurance sport or triathlon is just understanding sort of the nomenclature or the terminology around triathlon. So maybe I'll just share a little bit of that until some questions come in, or anyone wants to get on the live with me. You can be on camera. I would love that. I would love to meet you. So triathlon is an endurance activity that consists of swimming, biking, and running in that order. I don't remember how it got started. I'm not even sure if I know how it got started, but I know Ironman got started by sort of a competition around which is the best athlete, a swimmer, a biker, or a runner, and then they ended up putting it all together for Ironman in Hawaii. So a triathlon is swimming, then biking, then running in that order. And what can be a little confusing are the different distances. So the distances break down to a sprint, which there's sprint, Olympic, half Ironman, and Ironman. So Ironman is a brand, but it is also a distance. Okay. And there are also some super sprints out there, but those are a little bit, I'm going to say, unofficial. So a sprint distance triathlon consists of a half-mile swim, like a 15-mile bike ride, and a 5K, a 3.1-mile run. That's a sprint distance triathlon. An Olympic distance triathlon is a gosh, half-mile swim, which is like 800 yards in the pool. That's for a sprint. So an Olympic distance is a 1,500 yard swim. It's like it's 0.9 miles. Oh my God, I haven't thought about this in so long. So an Olympic distance swim is 0.9 miles, which is like a 1,500, maybe 1,600 in the pool, a 25-mile bike ride, and then a 10K run. So 6.2-mile run. Okay, then, and actually a solid time for a sprint distance triathlon is like 2 hours. So 2 hours for a sprint distance triathlon isn't going to win you anything, but it's not really easy to do unless you're just like, super fit. I mean, let's talk about being your first triathlon. A sprint distance triathlon, 2 hours is a great goal time. You're not going to win anything, but it's not easy to do either. Okay. So then you step up from that to a Olympic distance, which is about a 3-hour race. Again, you're not going to win anything at 3 hours, but okay, I see something from Connor. I'm going to get them in just a second. An Olympic distance, a 3-hour Olympic distance triathlon is a great time. It's not easy to do, and it won't win you anything, but it's a good goal. Okay, and that's for Olympic is 0.9 mile swim, 25-mile bike, and a 6.2-mile run or 10K run. Okay, Connor, thanks for joining in. How would you recommend planning a training week where you're increasing running and cycling? Stick with all to work to build a base and get used to it before working in faster pieces. Yes, I'm a big fan of base training and working a base. I'm not sure, what distance are you thinking about for your training week? For me, I'm pretty much training 6 days a week. Zone 2 works. Oh man, I am a huge Zone 2 fan. There's actually 2 videos on my YouTube channel dedicated to talking about Zone 2. The biggest reason I got into Zone 2 back in the early 2000s is because I was bonking or hitting the wall or having low blood sugar regularly during workouts, even while backpacking. And I found this book after going to doctors and they couldn't find anything wrong with me and so on. I found this book called Sports Nutrition for the Endurance Athlete. And you can still get it. I think there's a second edition now. I'm pretty sure it's still available on Amazon. Fantastic book. And that's where I learned about Zone 2 back in like 2003. And that doing a Zone 2 base training for 12 weeks straight, you will train your body to be a fat burning machine. You will completely transform your cellular metabolism. I think training your body to be fat burning using a Zone 2 approach, which is the lower heart rate, that's when your heart rate is between like 60 and 70% of your max heart rate. And I think 220 minus your age is good enough. I've been using that and helped so many people for decades to use that approach to find your max heart rate. Okay, I don't know what that is. That looks like a spam. So you're getting blocked. So this base training, training your body to burn fat as a fuel because you're fully aerobic versus forcing your body through how you eat or intermittent fasting. I do like intermittent fasting. I've done it for many, many years, not currently right now, but I did it for more than 4 years straight. And you can teach your body to be fat burning that way as well. But I think by intermittent fasting, you're more forcing your body by not giving it fuel, and also with keto, paleo, and those kind of diets, which I'm not recommending any diet at this point, but with those diets, you're sort of forcing your body to burn fat as a fuel because you're depriving it of carbohydrates with those kinds of diets, and depriving it of food with the intermittent fasting or other kind of fasting. So by training your body, doing the base training zone 2, these are all synonyms, then you will teach your body to use fat as its primary fuel source because you're fully aerobic. And I recommend doing zone 2 for a 12-week cycle. I still do it once a year. I usually do it during the off season from like November, December, January, or October, November, December. That's like off season for triathlon. I would do this 12-week base training, repriming my body, and I would be strict, super strict for 12 weeks. Every workout, doesn't matter if I'm swimming, if I'm biking, if I'm running, it doesn't matter. I would stick to my low intensity heart rate range, which is 60 to 70%, maybe up to 75% if you're in really good condition, but just stick with that 60 to 70 fully aerobic. And again, there's videos that really go into detail on my YouTube channel. It's all free for you to look at. And there's a full plan in there as well on this 12-week plan for base training. So I recommend, back to Connor, your question, I love working out 6 days a week. Mondays are usually my rest day, which is why we're doing this live on a Monday. And, you know, with triathlon, 2-a-days is a really common thing. So typically I would swim Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning, and then I'd be running or cycling every night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you know, basically every other day of the week, I'm doing something. So I'm hoping I answered your question. Basically, 6 days a week and just bouncing between running and cycling, running and cycling. And then once you start getting comfortable with that, and in your base training, throwing in a couple of brick workouts. So a brick is where you're building workouts. So a traditional brick workout is a bike and then run. And this would be not exactly the 2-a-day, because a 2-a-day would be like a morning workout and an evening workout. A brick workout is where you're doing one discipline right after the other. So typically it's a bike and then a run, which is really, really helpful because you're using a lot of the same muscle groups, where swimming is more upper body for triathletes. Cycling and running is really lower body, you know, your legs, right? So I would definitely recommend doing as much as you can to be consistent. And that's really the overall key of endurance training, is just consistency over and over and over. And with that brick workout, the run doesn't have to be long. You know, some people, this is a cool little style. For every 10 miles they bike, they will run 1 mile on the run for their brick workout. I see your next question. I'm going to get to that in 1 second. And then, but for me, you know, even I just like to run after the bike ride long enough to sort of get into my rhythm. Okay. Now, if I'm training for Ironman or something, it's a little bit different, where I'm trying to run longer on tired legs, but that's a whole different story. But for just getting started, just run, you know, 10, 15 minutes. And we're talking like zone 2 for sure, zone 1, zone 2 running after the bike for a traditional brick workout. Okay, Connor, back to spin classes, stationary bike sessions good enough throughout the winter if I can hit the road due to rain and yeah, absolutely. Okay, so here's what I have found about spin classes and stationary bike. I love them. I love them for the winter, but once the weather turns and I can ride outside, I have never found spin classes or stationary bike, on a trainer at home to be anything even close to comparable to riding outdoors. I know even pro athletes now, they like really commit to indoor training on the bike and they really dial in. They are really committed to really specific workouts with power and heart rate and everything. I think most of the age groupers out there, that's basically everybody other than a pro, they're not really doing such a focused, controlled indoor bike workout. For me, spin class and stationary bike has always been a way to continue my maintenance and my overall the muscles being used to and familiar and comfortable so you don't get like cobwebs. But really, I find the stationary and spin classes to be mostly maintenance and overall conditioning, but it's really once you get outside that the real bike training kicks in because you can't control the wind and the hills and the pavement and the bike handling, cars, traffic, everything like that. So hopefully, Connor, I was able to answer your question there. And thanks for asking these questions. I really appreciate it. You can be live if you join the StreamYard. We can see each other, or through the comments is totally awesome as well. Okay, so until I see another question come in, we'll get back to overall the different distances of triathlon and the different times. So a sprint is the shortest triathlon. That's like a 2-hour race. An Olympic distance is a little bit of a step up. That's basically a 3-hour race for the average people. Not easy to get, and you're not going to win anything. But a 3-hour Olympic is a really good goal time. The next step up for endurance would be a marathon. So a marathon, which 26.2 mile run, it's just a run. If you can do a marathon in 4 hours, that's a really, really good time. It's not easy to do because it's like a 9-minute mile. You're not going to win anything for sure, but a 4-hour marathon would be the next step up in a traditional endurance activity. So after the marathon for 4 hours comes the half Ironman. So a half Ironman is a 1.2 mile swim, a 56-mile bike ride, and then a 13.1 mile run. That's a half marathon. And if you can, a really great goal time for a half Ironman is 6 hours. Again, not easy to do. And you're not going to win anything because actually Eagleman was this past weekend in Maryland, and the winning male finished in like 3.5 hours. And the winning female finished in, I think, just a hair under 4 hours. So a 6-hour half Ironman is great, but you're not going to win anything. Okay, Rosanna, hello there. Just found this by stream by accident. I guess this is my sign to train for triathlon. Yeah, well, if you want to learn about triathlon and endurance sport, hopefully this is a nice little introduction to triathlon. Do you have any interest? Were you searching on anything in particular? Looks like you're over on YouTube. Anything else you want to share about your endurance activities? Feel free to share. Okay, so a 6-hour half Ironman, and then the step up from that would be a full Ironman distance. And again, the Hawaii Ironman is the world championship. There are lots of other Ironman races around the world, It's the championship is the one in Hawaii. Okay, so a full Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim. That's basically 4,000 yards in the pool. A 112-mile bike ride. So that's more than a century ride. A century ride is 100 miles, century 100. So it's a 112-mile bike ride, and then a full 26.2-mile marathon at the end. And a really great time for Ironman is 12 hours. Again, the pros finish in under 8 hours now. Most age groupers, it takes them, I think the average time for an Ironman for age grouper is over 14 hours. So 12 hours for a full Ironman is an incredible accomplishment, a great goal. It is not easy, and you're not going to win anything, but it's a goal. Okay, currently, Connor. Thanks, Connor, for being so active in the chat. I really appreciate that. Currently holding a 145 for 100 meters swim pace for 2 kilometers. Is there any point in getting a swim coach for technique to improve that if my running biking is truly terrible, or just focus on those two? That's a great question. What matters to you most, Connor? What do you want to put your effort into? You know, we're doing, all of us age groupers, myself included, we're doing triathlon and any of these sports for, well, we all have our own reasons why, but for us age groupers, this is not for our livelihood. So it's really what matters to you most. Do you want to get better at swimming? Do you want to be faster at the swim? If your running and biking isn't strong, here's what here's what I will say though. Nobody ever wins a triathlon in the water. Basically, the swim is something that most people, even the pros, you get through the swim and you want to be super fresh to do the bike and the run strong. You don't want to be so far behind, more than 10 minutes behind the leaders. Again, this is pros. You don't want to be so far behind that it's going to be really tough to catch up on the bike or the run. But biking is half the race. Okay, so let's just talk about like an Olympic distance race. So the swim is 0.9 miles. That's like 1,600 yards in the pool. The bike is 25 miles and the run is 6.2 miles, 10K. So the bike at 25 miles is going to take, if you did the bike in an hour and a half, that would be a really solid bike. Okay, I don't remember the pacing of that, but it's probably somewhere around like 15 miles an hour average. So if the bike is an hour and a half and a 3-hour time overall for an Olympic distance triathlon is a good solid time, that biking is half your race and the swim and the run are the other parts. So I would really focus most on your biking, and especially, and here's some, this is such a great question, Connor, because it brings up so many other things. I've seen the best runners get destroyed after the bike, and then they're walking on the run because they didn't train their bike enough so that they felt good coming off the bike to do the run, whatever distance it is. So training the bike so that you're fresh enough to do that run is really, really critical. Get through the swim, hone the bike, and then you can actually hopefully run the run. Because again, even the best runners are walking if they had a difficult bike and it trashed their legs. So I'd say put time into the bike. And I can tell you with like Ironman training, I rode at least a century once a week for the 7 weeks prior to Ironman. And wow, that was amazing training. And there were some weeks where I covered more than 200 miles on the bike in a week. I was doing each discipline 4 times a week with 1 full rest day a week. So there's a lot of training in there. So it's 12 workouts in 6 days a week, right? But that's Ironman training. You don't have to do that for half Ironman or Olympic or sprint, okay? I've started running again. after never sticking with it and hating it. My next goal is to run 10 kilometers. Awesome goal. 10K. I mean, that's a legit run, Rosanna. Rosanna. I've been cycling and swimming regularly for a while now. Let's see when I feel confident. Yeah, absolutely. Once you feel confident enough with each of the three disciplines, a sprint distance is a fantastic way to get started. I'm not sure if it's still going on, but there is also a series. Rosanna, I'm assuming you're female. Um, there's a series called Iron Girl, which is female only athletes can register for that race. It's a sprint distance race. There's so much camaraderie. I've volunteered at many of the Iron Girl triathlons. There's so much camaraderie between the women, and it's a great way to get started without having that like male pressure around. Um, and yeah, I totally understand hating the run. We're kind of similar. Running is my least favorite discipline. But what I can also tell you is that the more I run, the more I kind of like it. And the way I make it a little bit easier is sometimes I'll just do a 20-minute jog, right? So if I need to do something in a day and I really don't feel like running or my legs are tired, just doing a 20-minute jog on those 2 off days that you're not really training, just getting on your legs again for 20 minutes, easy. We're talking zone 2 training, fully aerobic, barely sweating. That can be a really great way to keep your legs in that running zone, and getting more comfortable and still training, and making it not so, brutal, because running's tough. I mean, that's what gets my heart rate up the highest. Um, so yeah, 10K run. I mean, that is a solid run, no joke. I mean, look at how many people struggle to run just a mile, and you're talking about over 6 miles. So good for you. Stick with it. And yeah, when you get confident enough with swimming and biking and then doing a couple of brick workouts just to get the feel of running after the bike or biking after the swim, because when you're swimming you're horizontal and you can be a little bit dizzy when you're getting out of the water. It's just adjusting and your head's adjusting, and then getting on the bike and amping up for that. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and that's kind of one of the things that I love about triathlon is it's really like 5 sports in one, because you've got, of course, your swimming, your biking, your running, but T1, the transition from swim to bike, that's also timed, and T2, the transition from bike to run, is also timed. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for joining in. Iron Girl is the all-female athlete sprint distance triathlon. Not Iron Woman, Iron Girl. And I think it still runs around the country. So check it out. Maybe you can find it. Here, maybe I can type it in. Iron Girl triathlon. Only female athletes. Okay. Yeah, Iron Girl. There you go. Awesome. Yeah, so more questions. What else is crazy in the endurance world? Let's see. So I've been around the sport for 24 years. Like I said, I do coach, but I'm not promoting that today, but just for my credentials, if you will, is I've coached everywhere from 5K to Ironman coaching. And this is all just side gig. This isn't my day job. But I just love the sport. It's been so wonderful for me over the years, wonderful community. And I just want to give back. So that's why I'm here. And I'm glad so many of you are showing up today with your questions as well, or just listening. That's wonderful too. Connor, there's no triathlon in my country until end of November. Are you Northern Hemisphere or Southern Hemisphere? Just planning on doing a sprint to get started. Sprint is a perfect way to get started. I actually really discourage getting started with a half Ironman or an Ironman. There's so much to learn. I'm not sure why people jump right. Well, I have a pretty good idea why people jump into half Ironman or Ironman. But honestly, just learning about your body and how you handle different environments and different trainings and your nutrition and hydration and electrolytes and injury prevention and all that stuff. Sprint or Olympic is such a wonderful way to get started, and super sprint as well. Sometimes those happen in a pool. Um, New Zealand. Okay, so November will be like your spring, right? Um, so that's wonderful. I love it. Should I do duathlons and running races in the meantime? It's really up to you. There is totally a style of training where you train by racing. I mean, in so many places, I mean, New Zealand's a little bit smaller. So I don't know if they have as many 5K, 10K races that you can get into one like every week or every other week or once a month. Um, but yeah, training by racing is great. Duathlons are wonderful because, that's a run bike run and you're forced to run after cycling. And that's, the whole thing of triathlon. And yeah, so it's whatever you're comfortable with. Again, sprint is a great way to get started. Races are a great way to get the feel and the energy of the crowd. Well, of the field of athletes, but also the crowd. Your adrenaline's up, and learning how to manage yourself in that kind of environment. Yeah, it takes practice, it takes experience, and one of the wonderful things about racing is also that when it starts, you go. It's not like when you're training and you're like, oh, you know what? I just need to take another 20 minutes to hydrate a little bit more or to stretch a little bit more or do this email. No, when you're at a race, when they say go, you go. It's not like, oh, hold on, time out, I want to take a break. No, when it's time to go in a race, you got to go. And that's something I love about racing, is that the race is the time that you prepare for, and it's time to be on, right? There's no break, there's no time out. You have to be on when they say go until you finish that, until you cross that finish line. So that's a wonderful thing about racing. But you don't have to just race to get the experience. One or two before your official triathlon. There's something called your A race, your B race, your C race, and this is how athletes might stage their season of races. So the A race is the race that you really, really want to do well at. The B race is like, okay, I'm doing this race. I want to try hard, but I'm not going to kill myself for it. Whereas in an A race, you're going to go all out to do whatever you can to do your best. And a C race might be something just like a training race. Like, yeah, I'm going to show up. It's supported. They've got, water and hydration and food on the course. Um, and it's a place to go and be around other people, but I don't really care what my results are. That's totally a thing as well. So you can stage your training around like A, B, and C races. They can be running races. They can be duathlons, and then wait for you, Connor, in New Zealand. Wait until the end of November to get to your A race or your triathlon, the full swim, bike, run triathlon. Whew, I'm talking a lot. Let me take a drink. Any nutrition questions? Any injury? Any aches and pain questions? Over on my YouTube, I've done a whole series and a whole playlist around injury prevention. And as I've said, before, I'm a 24-year injury-free Ironman triathlete and coach. And the way I'm qualifying the injury-free, because it doesn't mean I don't have my aches and pains, but I've never missed a season or a race due to injury. But I've had lots of different aches and pains over the years. There was a time when I had terrible Achilles tendonitis in both legs. And the doctor, this was back in like 2010. And, I went to the doctor and he's like, oh, you got to take 8 weeks off. You might rupture it. And I'm like, no, I'm going to be doing Ironman soon. I'm not taking time off. And long story short, and this is in some of those videos, um, I found foam rolling. Well, I found foam rolling back in like 2002, 2003. But when I was dealing with the Achilles tendonitis, I got really, really serious on the foam rolling of my lower leg. So my calf, which is like the soleus and the gastroc muscle, and I got really aggressive on foam rolling, and I cured my Achilles tendonitis in 3 weeks. And I was running again. And there's so many myths around the 10% rule and taking time off and rest and stretch. And so much of that is just myth. This is what I have found over the last 24 years. There's just so much myth that's still being believed and followed. And that's something that I'm trying to dispel, some of these myths around like overtraining and overuse injuries. I don't believe in any of that. And yeah, so that's a whole nother story. How to differentiate between fatigue, should take a rest day versus push through because it's just muscle fatigue. Great question, Connor. Any experience coaching athletes with labral tears in the hip and running post surgery? Okay, have you had the surgery, Connor? I'm just curious, because I personally believe that a lot of that surgery can be prevented with proper foam rolling. And I'm not a medical professional. I am not a doctor. I'm not a physical therapist, but I am a biomedical engineer. And I've designed total joint replacements, knees, hips, shoulders, and I've designed dozens and dozens of spinal implants and instruments for many, many years. So I do know a little bit about the body and the anatomy. And again, I've been in this sport injury free for over 20 years. So I think that right there says something as well. And I've helped a lot of athletes and non-athletes overcome their injuries and pains when doctors and physical therapists have failed. So I did have an athlete one time who had been having hip pain, and she'd been going to physical therapy for 9 months, twice a week, and she was having no improvement in her hip pain. And she came to me for coaching, because she wanted to run a marathon, her first marathon. And um, and she's like, but I've got this pain. I can't even do a 3-mile run without taking a leave. That was her medication, over-the-counter medication of choice. And I taught her how to correctly foam roll her glutes, okay, her butt. And in 2 weeks' time, she was pain-free and running pain-free, foam rolling with a lacrosse ball. So not exactly foam, but a lacrosse ball, rolling her glutes every day or twice a day, the way I taught her. So she was 9 months with no improvement from physical therapy twice a week. And then 2 weeks with my coaching of how to foam roll her glutes, she was running pain free. And that video is on YouTube. You can find it right now. So, Rosanna, it's very late in Germany. I'm going to sleep. Check out your channel. Awesome, Rosanna. Thanks so much for joining in from Germany. That's super exciting. Good luck with your journey, and reach out anytime, and enjoy the channel with all the material that you can find there, especially the injury prevention playlist. Okay, so Connor, 1 year post surgery already, after 9 years of 9 years of going through rehab. Oh my goodness gracious. Again, I don't know if I could have helped you or not, but it doesn't matter because you've had the surgery. Are you still having hip pain? Or where is your pain if you're still having pain now that you're 1 year post surgery from that labral tear? And what I would say is, even just to prevent further hip problems, to watch my video on hip pain and how to foam roll your glutes, which is really going to help with the hips. So that was a bit about um, the injury prevention and rolling. Um, the experience of the athlete that I coached to overcome her hip pain. I've helped, I can't even tell you how many dozen people with their knee pain, even to where um, after rolling one time, the way I teach, which really isn't, most of the videos online are actually showing incorrect form for foam rolling. Um, my technique isn't anything special, it's just the correct form. Um, so so what I have found is hip pain is usually rooted in knotted up glute muscles. Knee pain is usually rooted in knotted up quad muscles. It can even be sort of your IT band over on the lateral quad, the outside of your quad. And any kind of Achilles or plantar fasciitis is typically due to knotted up calves, which is your gastroc and soleus muscles, which is the back of your lower leg. Um, so that's kind of the rule of thumb to help deal with those types of pains. Okay, Connor, no pain, fully resolved, just don't want to go too hard in running at the beginning. Okay, wonderful. Well, I mean, congratulations on the success um, of that surgery. That is fantastic. No pain is wonderful. Um, all I would say is listen to your body, and that's what endurance sport is so much about, is getting to know your body and how you deal with different conditions, different hydration level, food level, stress level, life level, relationship level. Again, heat, humidity, sun, rain, cold, wind, hills, whatever. So since you're fully resolved, that's wonderful. I think go back to running, and you don't want to go crazy, obviously, but listen to your body. And I would just recommend getting into a regular foam rolling routine, um, specifically for your glutes, quads, and calves, because that's where biking and running is mostly rooted. And then rolling your shoulders can really help with any kind of um, swimmer's shoulder from swimming, obviously. Um, yeah, you can, go hard, but again, you want to have a good base before you start increasing the intensity. So the base training that we talked about earlier is super helpful. And that's another wonderful thing about a 12-week cycle of base training, um, which is it's not just about the cellular metabolism that you're training to burn fat as your primary fuel source by being fully aerobic. It's also conditioning your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments, all that soft tissue, building up bone density. All that's happening when you do that 12-week base training cycle. I know I'm bouncing around a little bit here. There's so much going through my brain. Um, but talking about the injury prevention thing, stretching is wonderful, but just know that there have been hundreds and hundreds of studies done trying to show that stretching prevents injury or helps you recover, and there has not been a study that shows stretching prevents injury. It does not. It does not. And if stretching really did prevent injury, then why do dancers and gymnasts and skaters, who are some of the most flexible people around, have some of the highest rates of chronic injury? And if strength training was really the answer, then why do the bodybuilders and football players and so on also have such high rates of chronic, not acute, chronic injury? Connor, thanks so much for being here. I totally understand you got to get going. I'll probably finish this soon as well. You can watch the replay on YouTube. I really appreciate all your questions, and have a great season. Enjoy the sport. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining and being so active. So I'm not against stretching. I'm not against strength training. I think both are wonderful, just for different reasons, not so much for injury prevention or injury recovery. Strength training can be, helpful with the injury recovery and prevention. But what I have found over my several decades, well, 2+ decades, is I attribute my being injury free to foam rolling. So that's just where I've landed on all this, and I've helped many dozens of athletes and non-athletes. My sister was having like a tennis elbow problem. I think it was because she'd been playing more um, pickleball, and I showed her how to. She was having tennis elbow, so I showed her how to roll her forearms, which is a video on my YouTube channel. Um, and I taught her how to do that. The next day, she's like, "Oh my God, I don't have any pain in my elbow." So now she just has to keep up with it. Sometimes that elbow pain can also be knotted up tricep muscles, but so often that tennis elbow is from gripping. Carpenters get this. People who work with their hands a lot can get it because they're gripping so much, which is flexing those forearms. And you can get knots in your forearms, and then that's what's probably leading to your tennis elbow. But it could be in the tricep as well, so you need to roll that. And again, those videos are on the YouTube channel, free and available for anyone. So, okay, so looks like we're pretty empty. So I might close this out soon since we're just about to an hour. So let's see, wrapping things up. I hope this is helpful for people. Again, whoever's just joined, if you have any questions about triathlon or endurance sport, happy to answer your questions. But I just wanted to give back and be here for anyone who is thinking about or interested in endurance sports, and also, or specifically triathlon. But recently I was at a piano bar and I was talking to the pianist, and he's doing a gig playing hard and sweating for like 3 or 4 hours a night. And that's an endurance sport. You've got to hydrate, you got to have your electrolytes, you need to take fuel. When you're banging at the piano for 3 or 4 hours, that's an endurance sport. So I'm starting to help him with some of his nutrition and hydration and electrolytes, because even playing an instrument, going on stage, playing a gig, these are all endurance sports. If you're doing anything for more than like 60 minutes, that right there can be considered an endurance sport. Because you're going to need to hydrate. You're going to need to put some fuel in probably. So you got to take care of yourself, so that you can do all these wonderful activities that you want to do in life. Okay, well, is there anything else I can share about the triathlon? We did sprint, Olympic, half Ironman, Ironman. We wove in, a 1 hour event could be like a 10K. If you can do a 10K 6.2 mile run in an hour, that's a great time. You might want to take some hydration during that. Maybe not nutrition necessarily, but hydration will probably also help with your performance, but also with your recovery. To do a half marathon in 2 hours, that would be comparable to a sprint distance triathlon, but the half marathon in 2 hours is only running, so it's only on your legs. So that can be more challenging, for some people, because you're only using those same muscles the whole time. Again, we talked about a 3 hour Olympic distance, a 4 hour marathon, a 6 hour half Ironman, and a 12-hour full Ironman. These are all solid times. They're not going to win you anything, but they're also not easy to accomplish. So I'm happy to do this. If people want me to do another session like this in the future, because they have more questions and they want to talk it out, I'm happy to do that as well. You can find me, you're probably already found me on YouTube at Kevin R. Strauss. My website is kevinrstrauss.com. And then there's my triathlon coaching, which is tritmi.kevinrstrauss.com. All my socials are Kevin R. Strauss. I'm on pretty much all of them, but I spend most of my time on LinkedIn and Facebook. And then I'm trying to make more and more videos for my YouTube channel, but that covers all manner of health and wellness, and specifically my day job, which is more about emotional health and behavior, relationships, and connection. So that's just a little bit more about me to wrap this up. Thank you all for those who showed up. For anyone who's watching this after the fact, watching the recorded video, I hope it's helpful. If you have questions, please ask. I try to be as responsive as possible, and I hope you've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed chatting or talking for an hour. I'd like to meet you all, hopefully sometime in the future as well. So like, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, peace, love, and connect.